Hi, very good morning. Okay. Okay, very good morning, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nurhanis and members of moderators today. Today I'm going to present a topic specifically about autism spectrum disorders. In this case, some strategies of promoting the well-being of students with special needs in higher educations. Actually, my name is Khairul Idris. I'm a clinical psychologist working now in early intervention center that providing early interventions for neurodevelopmental disabilities children. In somewhere in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm also a EXCO member of Persatuan Psikologi Malaysia or Malaysian Psychological Society. And okay, without further ado, we would like to continue with next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, basically, autism spectrum disorders is a kind of neurodevelopmental disabilities condition that affects a person's communications that relates how they are going to relate and communicate with the world around them. Actually, this condition is related to brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socialize with others, causing problems in social interactions and communications. Okay, next slide. The disorder includes limited and repetitive patterns of behavior. Well, the term spectrums in autism spectrum disorder refers to the wide range of symptoms and severity that occurs among them. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is some historical background of what autism spectrum disorder is all about. Okay, basically it includes several conditions were previously considered as separate. We call it classic autism. Okay, some of them there is exposure syndromes. We have childhood disintegrative disorders, Tourette syndromes, as well as unspecified pervasive developmental disorders. And in case of Asperger's syndromes, they consider it as a kind of autisms that totally different from the other rest of autisms, and has been thought to be at the mild form or mild ends of autism spectrum disorder. Okay, next slide. Okay, it is a fact that autism can lead to ways of thinking that appear unnecessarily rigid or repetitive, okay, in understanding social interactions and to difficulties in concentrating and processing information in typical ways. Actually, when we talk about autism, it is kind of disorders that present someone with issues or problems in specific areas. That can be, some traits of them, and that kind of traits actually define their characters, their personalities as something very particular and different from the rest of the typical individual. Okay, next slide. As a spectrum condition, autism affects inflicted individual in different ways. Some of them they will have symptomatic manifestation at different level of severity. Some of them they have very limited amount of of symptomatic severity, and some others they have some kind of symptom that are totally different from the other individual with autism. This we always encounter this kind of saying, as if you have seen one child with autism, you have seen with autism, meaning that if there are a group of individuals with autism, every one of them will show a specific kind of different symptoms, as well as symptom manifestation and what we call severity. In terms of severity, we have autism spectrum disorder or SD that comes from different background. We have them that show different level of severity. They could be classified as mild. Some of them they go into moderate levels of severity, and while others they have severity, very severe forms of severity. Okay, we go to next slide. Okay, all right. On top of that, many autistic people, they have their own strengths. They have the ability to maintain intense focus. They adopt unconventional angles in problem solving. They can spot errors very easily compared to others. Okay, and basically, a substantial amount of people with autisms, they have, average or advanced intellectual abilities, and actually, in terms of academic competence, they are of no difference. Okay, although they might be having some additional learning disabilities. Some of them they show, for example, symptoms of dyslexia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, and some of them they have issues with sensory processing, sensorium problems, and but many of them they can go into adult life, go to universities. They can enroll to universities and study with other people of neurotypical group of individuals. Okay, we go to next slide. As we can see that individuals with autism as well, they can function as normal persons, typical individuals. Okay, and autism spectrum disorder, actually, okay, this is something to do with what we call the cause of the disease. Normally, we can diagnose autism spectrum disorders or ASD as early as 2 years of life. Normally, what we can see during the age of the child can show some problems in functioning. Okay, they show problems in their speech development. They show problems in their behavior, their emotion, how to manage their emotion. They have issues with emotion regulation, so on and so forth. Okay, we go to next slide. All right, this is something to do with some group of children. They show normal developments, okay, in the first year of life, for example. And then for certain kinds of issues, the normal developments has been, sort of stuck and go into a period of regressions between 18 to 24 months. And then they might be having issues and then show some symptoms of autism. Okay, this is a matter of fact that as autism is part of neurodevelopmental disorders, there is still no cure for the disease, for the disorders. However, early treatment can make a big difference in the life of many children. Okay, we go to next slide. Okay, this is something that I would like to share with audience. Autism or ASD is identified by two main distinguishing features. Okay, first is difficulty with social communications and interactions, and second is they will show some form of very restricted repetitive behaviors or interests. Okay, so as we understand that ASD is a lifelong condition, it affects in every part of their life. Okay, and characteristics common to ASD includes reliance on rigid routines, heightened sensitivity to sensory stimuli, and difficulty regulating and expressing emotions. Okay. As we understand that autism was officially recognized as a diagnosis in the 1990s, after which the incident has continued to rise dramatically around the world, including Malaysia. Okay, next slide. So now we go to how autism spectrum disorder or ASD in higher educations. Okay, when we learn from the experience that we got from the developed nations or countries in other part of the world, we can see that some of them have they have offered some services for students with autism spectrum disorders. However, the services are very limited in numbers. and the type of services they offer is also very specific to their own nations. Okay. As we continue that, 1 in 125 children, have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders in 1996, and now actually they are starting to arrive at college campuses. And more recent numbers indicate that the diagnosis rate has risen to 1 in 68, over half of whom will have average or above average intelligent ability, and they are, of course, accessible to universities. They are qualified. So this is from Center of Disease Control and Prevention in the US, that there are studies about this in 2014. Okay, next slide. Well, from the context of our country, actually we have a very limited or hardly numbers of individuals diagnosed with autism in Malaysia. We have JKM or Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat. We have Jabatan Kebajikan Public Welfare Department in our country. However, when we see that the specific statistical what we call data regarding individual with autism spectrum disorders is very limited. Okay, all right, and it's quite recently that in the US it has been found that autism has been the diagnosis and the numbers, the incidence and the prevalence of autism in that country has been, spike up. It's about 1 for every 59 children in that country is going to be diagnosed as having autism issues. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, well now we go to how individuals with autism look like when they enter the universities. Actually, these are actually some of the personal experiential descriptions of someone who are having this symptom when they are in the universities. Okay, they just have the understanding that well, I don't tell my fellow student because I can't see. Okay, affecting how they see me, I would rather choose to be a mysterious guy than autistic. Okay, some of them, they reported that just like this, I still feel quite ashamed talking about my limitations to most people, as I don't instantly fit the stereotypical type of an autistic person. I only disclose to close friends or management at work. So these are actually some descriptions. How do they describe themselves? Okay, about their illnesses, their disorders. Okay, it took me too long to build up the courage to go to their disability support team. But by then it was too late. I had enough and couldn't continue at universities, as I couldn't function properly and was not happy with the universities and with the environment. So these are some descriptions about them. Okay, as we see that autism have issues with many issues, sensory problems with speech, with verbal acquisitions of knowledge. They got issues with repetitive patterns of thinking, a very particular part of characters traits that define them as who they are, and therefore they choose not to be just not to be so public or exposing or disclosing their characters. Okay, then we go to next slide. These are again some of the description of them. I might not have dropped out from the universities. This is something to do with maybe some of them they just feel secure when they are in their own self, in their own environment, in their own personal life. Okay, and they do not want to disclose themselves to other students, and they got problem, especially when when it is involved, group work, study group, so on and so forth. And because of that, they choose not to disclose or not to involve themselves in socializing. All right, and many of them has been developed into some form of anxiety because of this. Majority of them they have issues with depression as well. Okay, and lastly, I think I feel reluctant to share my problems because in the past my fitness to study has been questioned. I have been asked whether university is the right environment for me. So these are some of the examples what they are experiencing when they enter into the universities. Some of them they might be drop out because of the university environment, because of the facilities that being provided in the universities are not fit into their what expecting, and some of them they might be having problems with groups, with socializations, and then they just drop out because of that. Okay, then we continue with the next slide. All right, here are some challenges of the students with autism as they are in the universities or in the college campus. Okay, the social and physical environments. Some of them might be having issues with how do they interact, of course, and communicate socially with other people. And when it comes to physical environment, it has something to do with due to sensorial difficulties they have sound problem issues. They have, for example, verbal issues, so on and so forth. Because of that, the universities, to the extent does not understand how there are problems in terms of social and physical environments, so they are not being tackled. And then lack of appropriate support. We go back to our country. Well, I think there is hardly specific kind of research done on how students or individual students with autism spectrum disorders will go into their problem in the universities. Okay, they find that there is no support for them. If there is support for them, then they do not know, or they unwilling to go because of that issues. Okay, so in this case, I think what the university, the people in the university can do, or the management in the university can do, is that maybe they can come closer to the specific students and then offer the services. All right, challenges concerning assessment. This is something to do with the matter or the method of the assessment being done for those kind of individuals with autism. Maybe they are having issues with what we call with sensories, having issues with attentions and concentrations, with verbal understanding. So they got issues with assessment. Okay, so in this case, when their problems has been their problems has been understood, has been recognized, so that the university can specifically focus on that issues and then offer some service. And transitioning to adult life requiring more effort than it would be for the average student. Yes, this is so clearly when individuals with autism transitioning to adult life has become a problem for them. How to enter to the after graduating, they go to works, how to find some works, whether the works willing to accept them as employees or not. Okay, after that, they have to they are capable of getting married, capable of having children, getting work, but the issue is the transition period has been found to be sort of problematic to them. Okay, and lastly, I think unrealistic expectations by the students themselves. Some of students, they have very unrealistic expectations, meaning that when they go to universities, they have different kinds of perspective and worldview about the universities, about the lecturers and friends, and as well as about their studies and how to choose their specializations in their studies. Okay, they also have very unrealistic expectations in terms of communications, how to communicate with their peers, with their lecturers and tutors. Okay. All right. So we go to next slide. Okay. Now it is a kind of what actually the university management or the lecturers or the tutors can do about it. Okay, basically we have to learn, learn something what autism spectrum disorders is all about in general. Okay, we understand the students, what are the specific challenges that they have, and what are the requirement that we have to have in order to offer our service for them. Okay, second is we are advised to show a positive attitude toward arrangement and devices that allow the student to manage reaction to the sensory environment, such as designated seats, wearing hats, hoods, or tinted lenses indoors, wearing headphones, or handling stress toys, for example. Okay, and we do some survey about the accessibility strategies. We consider our own policies regarding disabilities, about autism, disabilities, and we focus what we have to offer to them, okay, in terms of training. Okay, next slide. We have the opportunity to request and undergo specialized training how to support students with autism in higher educations. And if suitable training is not available, okay, make a request to a relevant department within your institution, organizations with autism spectrum that may start creating such trainings. We have to. So this, okay, next slide. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all about my presentation today, and thank you very much for everyone's attentions and supports. And now I think we get back to the moderators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khairul, for very insightful and a lot of practical tips that has been discussed as well as given by Mr. Khairul. Thank you so much.